Mark Twain popularised the phrase, there are three kinds of lies. Lies, damned lies, and statistics. Our story is about such a statistic, which we at the Australian Secular Lobby have named Porkie. Over the course of a couple of weeks in late 2009, Porkie grew from a little porky to a great big porky. Join us now to follow his adventures as Mr. 97% Porkie goes to Parliament. When John Howard pulled his constitution-challenging national school chaplaincy scheme from his pre-election pork barrel in October 2006, it was destined to operate over a period of 3 years at an initial taxpayer cost of $90 million, which subsequently blew out to $165 million. In mid-2009, with an end to federal funding for school chaplains in sight, an organisation known as the National School Chaplaincy Association, or the NSCA, commissioned a survey titled The Effectiveness of Chaplaincy. The NSCA report was to be narrowed to only Australian government schools with a federally funded chaplain employed by its own members. The NSCA is an alliance of the primary employers of federally funded state school Christian chaplains across Australia. Possessing such blatantly vested interests, it surely would not be unreasonable to consider such a survey as tantamount to Philip Morris commissioning a survey exploring the effectiveness of smoking. The New South Wales Department of Education refused to participate in the survey and denied access to their schools. A Mr. Smith from the New South Wales Education Department provided this statement to the National School Chaplaincy Association.
I'm still concerned that the study does not appear to be designed as a fair evaluation of the national program, since alternative means of achieving program objectives are not considered. In addition, I'm concerned that your study involves only Christian chaplains.
The beneficiaries of federally funded school chaplaincy were desperate for implied credibility in any form. In a matter of weeks, by no coincidence, Kevin Rudd was to address the Australian Christian Lobby National Conference. The ACL have consistently been major lobbyists for the government funding of state school chaplains. The findings of the NSCA survey of its own employees were published on October 13, 2009. This was the outcome. There are 2,712 Australian schools with a federally funded chaplain. We can regard this figure as 100%. The survey was circulated to 1,626 Australian schools with an NSCA member-employed Christian chaplain. The NSCA received 688 positive responses to the survey, which represents 25% of Australian schools with a federally funded chaplain. So there it is. Ambiguous and ill-defined as it may be, in a survey rejected as unfair by the New South Wales Education Department, 25% of Australian school principals with a federally funded NSCA-employed chaplain apparently indicated that chaplaincy is important. 25%. Please remember this figure. On October 13, the day of the report's release, a story on the Radio National PM program allowed the already woolly survey figures to begin their rapid journey to Canberra, morphing into Mr. 97% Porkie along the way. And who better than Reverend Philip Hughes, the report's principal author, to announce the findings.
97% of principals were really affirming of the contribution that the chaplains were making.
On October 27, Porkie stormed Parliament. After all, Rudd's appearance at the Australian Christian Lobby Conference was fast approaching, and some impressive Hansard quotes were needed fast. It's question time in the House of Reps. From Hansard, Alex Sommier, federal Liberal member for Fairfax in Queensland, puts this question to Kevin Rudd.
I refer the Prime Minister to the thousands of chaplains who will start their final month of employment next week, following the government's decision to cut the successful National School Chaplaincy program, supported by over 95% of the participating principals in Australia.
Now, Rudd's appearance at the Australian Christian Lobby Bash was imminent, so on October 30, the ACL's own Chief of Staff, Lyle Shelton, gave Porkie another kick along within the organisation's weekly online video news.
Now, the National Association of School Chaplaincy has commissioned research by the Edith Cowan University in Western Australia, which surveyed some 1,600 school principals, predominantly in state schools where these programs operate. There was a 97% positive response from these principals to the chaplaincy programs that are operating in their schools. This is a fantastic result.
Were Kevin and Julia paying attention? Apparently so, because on November 12, the Melbourne Age reported Gillard's intentions for the future of federally funded school chaplaincy thus:
Ms Gillard has said the government will consider funding for the program in its budget and has acknowledged the popularity of the program among principals.
So it was that on November 21, during his speech at the Australian Christian Lobby Conference in Canberra, Kevin Rudd expressed his ecstatic support for federally funded school chaplaincy, while extending it for a year at a cost of $42 million. At the same time, Rudd alluded to further future government funding for school chaplaincy following consultation during 2010. By now, Mr Porkie's 97% of school principals was chiselled into marble and destined to become the main argument for eternal federal funding for Christian chaplains in Australia's public schools. There was much work to be done. 5 days later, on November 26, it was time for Porkie to return to Canberra. This time, Peter Dutton, Liberal member for Dixon, tabled a Porkie-peppered petition in the House of Reps, part of which reads from Hansard,
Figures show that 97% of school principals who have engaged a chaplain strongly support the program and recognise the benefits for their school communities.
Porkie was having a huge day, so he scooted over to the Senate, where Liberal Senator for Queensland, Brett Mason, asked this question of Labor Senator Kim Carr, again from Hansard.
Given that 2,700 schools have school chaplains, and over 97% of those schools think that chaplains have had a positive influence on their school, why has the Rudd government chosen to...
Then, one of the original masterminds of the Howard School chaplaincy scheme, Liberal Senator for Tasmania, Guy Barnett, outdid them all.
There are 2,700 schools currently benefiting from the chaplaincy program, and they like it. A survey was undertaken recently, and the report of that survey said that 97% of the principals of those schools said, yes, it is a program worthy of keeping, and we really appreciate it.
And then proceeded to tell the House that Labor had carried out the survey.
This government is up to its neck in reviews. They've already done one review and they know the results are fantastic. A 97% result. You cannot get much better than that.
By now, Porkie was demanding that Hansard be renamed Hamsard. He was ready for national morning television. Sunrise on 7, no less. Here's Queensland Scripture Union CEO Tim Mander pointing Porkie at Melankoshi.
The proof is in the pudding. In recent research said that 98% of school principals who have a school chaplain wanted this funding to continue because of the positive effect that they're having on the school community, and you can't argue with those facts.
Wow. Well, obviously that's why the federal government's continuing the program until at least 2011. So, Tim...
Wow. We can't capture the squealing success of Porkie's mission to Canberra any better than Melissa Doyle. But wait, there's more. Appalled at the porcine pong emanating from our nation's halls of power, the Australian Secular Lobby had been corresponding with the survey's home base, Edith Cowan University. Surely ECU would not endorse the grossly distorted 97% of school principals myth. At 6 p.m. on Friday, November 27, the evening of Mander's statement on Sunrise, we received a reply from the Senior Executive Officer within the Office of the ECU Vice-Chancellor, defending the survey's findings. It concluded with this admonishing statement from the principal author, who surely must be Reverend Philip Hughes. His words were remarkably, candidly, spookily aligned with precisely what Mander had said on Sunrise the same morning.
The principal author has advised us, I don't think the report itself is controversial. It will be used for political purposes that are somewhat controversial. The renewal of the funding for chaplaincy. However, the political contest will be over ideological matters, not over the empirical fact that most principals who have had a chaplain want the funding to continue.
This is the part of our movie where we find the Statue of Liberty poking out of the sand. To paraphrase another Porkie, that's nearly all for now, folks. But please consider this. The combined Christian school chaplain employing bodies who commissioned the survey are gunning for a further $300 million ATO. Just because Porkie is now a high roller, he is still a Porkie. You'll be hearing much more from Porkie over the next year or so, and when you do, please tell everyone who'll listen that you knew him when he was just a rubbery piglet. And you saw it all in his biopic, Mr. 97% Porkie Goes to Parliament.